novel The Catcher in the Rye, written by J.D. Salinger, has sold over 65 million copies, and although the language is extremely outdated compared to our contemporary literature today, it is undeniable that the novel accurately captures the adolescent voice and way of thinking. Since its release in 1951, when the concept of an adolescent had barely emerged, the novel has been censored more than 150 times due to its inappropriate language and sexual subject matter. I think we can all agree that although the character of Holden is extremely annoying, as well as the setting being somewhat outdated, most teens can relate to the character Holden. We all experience sadness, loneliness, and inquisitiveness of why we exist. Salinger's colloquial and personal style of writing makes Holden appear more realistic and allows the readers to connect and relate to the character Holden. Through Salinger's use of language techniques of swearing and slang, he's effectively captured the teenage voice, as this is stereotypical teenage language. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it is remarkably clear that, that modern-day high school students today would study the novel, The Catcher in the Rye, due to the extremely relatable themes of mental illness and the search for identity that have been portrayed by Salinger. Who am I? Why do we exist? Is there a moral standard by which we should all abide by? These existential questions have troubled humans for centuries and continue to trouble those living in the 21st century. Holden Caulfield struggles, just like adolescents today, with finding his own identity throughout The Catcher in the Rye. When Holden wears his red hunting hat, it acts as a form of escapism and protection for Holden. He tries to escape his own identity whilst wearing the hat. It allows him to preserve his innocence and childhood identity whilst wearing it. Holden states, "Then I took my hunting hat out of my coat pocket and gave it to her. She didn't want to take it, but I made her." Just like Holden, teens today are trying to create their own identity, trying to find themselves. Symbolically, Salinger captures Holden's immature and protective ways of thinking as he attempts to protect Phoebe from the difficulties of adulthood. He gives her his red hunting hat to wear. Kylie Jenner has recently released her own Kylie Cosmetics lip kits, which have skyrocketed, selling out completely in just 30 seconds. Just like Holden using his red hunting hat as a form of protection and escapism from the adult world, millions of teens today are following this lip trend in hopes of feeling protected as they blend into the crowd. They escape their own individuality by adopting celebrity persona. They are masking their identity to help protect themselves from criticism and scrutiny. The lip kits enable us to fake it till we make it. Fake our identity whilst hiding behind someone else's until we make our own. This once again comes back to the existential question, who am I? Holden's irrational behaviour and his dream to be the catcher in the rye depicts Holden's emotional instability, immaturity, and his avoidance of reality. He attempts to escape the inevitability of growing up, a stereotypical behaviour of adolescence, proving that Salinger has effectively captured the teenage way of thinking. It is obvious that Holden is trying to escape reality when he states, "Certain things should stay the way they are. You ought to be able to stick them in one of those glass cases and just leave them alone. I know that's impossible, but it's too bad anyway." Salinger clearly encapsulates the insecure and uncertain teenage way of thinking. The colloquialism is perfectly in line with the adolescent voice and shows that even though the novel was published at a time when the concept of teen didn't exist, Salinger captured the dismissive adolescent ways of thinking perfectly. In this case, the museum is symbolic of Holden's desire to retain his childhood innocence, much like many teens today. According to Dr. Carl E. Pitchart, adolescents want to leave the world of childhood and teenagehood behind and enter into adulthood. However, they are not ready to release all their precious child interests, belongings, and relationships behind. Throughout the novel, The Catcher in the Rye, Holden's emotional instability, sadness, and loneliness is a prevalent theme, and the way Salinger has captured the adolescent voice and way of thinking perfectly has enabled teenagers today to easily relate to Holden. Holden's typical teenage depressive nature and way of thinking is extremely evident to the readers from early in the novel. Holden's actions clearly act as evidence supporting his depressive mental state, particularly in regards to the death of his brother Ali. This is evident when Holden states, "I was only 13 and they were going to have me psychoanalyzed and all because I broke all the windows in the garage. I don't blame them. I slept in the garage the night he died. It was a stupid thing to do, I'll admit. I don't even know what I was doing. And you didn't know, Ali." Through the use of this broken sentence structure, it is evident that Holden's thoughts were disorientated and abrupt, depicting that he was overwhelmed with sadness, anxiety, and depressive thoughts. Through the use of imagery and Holden's depressive and juvenile ways of thinking, the readers are positioned to empathise and connect with the character Holden. The cynicism seen in Holden's character is still stereotypical of teenagers in the modern day, and thus, by highlighting this negative view of the world, Salinger was able to effectively encapsulate the teenage voice. Astoundingly, Holden mentions the word depressed 225 times, the word alone 38 times, and the word sad 47 times. And just like Holden, most teens today have a depressive and negative nature. Through the use of these negative words, the audience is able to conclude that the character Holden is in a depressive state. And with approximately 1 in every 4 teens today experiencing emotional uncertainty and depressive thoughts, it is no wonder why the novel is still studied today, despite it having been released 65 years ago at a time when the concept of teen wasn't even around. Holden's depressive view of the world is a perfect representation of an adolescent's mentality today. So, ladies and gentlemen, I guess the question is, why does The Catcher in the Rye manage to sell 250,000 copies each year since its release in 1951? Salinger has perfectly been able to represent the teenage ways of thinking so accurately and timelessly. Through the use of Salinger's colloquial, personal, and negative language, he has been able to create the stereotypical, depressive, juvenile, and confused teenage voice. This teenage voice encapsulates the typical unenthusiastic, annoying, and negative ways of thinking, despite the setting being somewhat outdated.